And if we focus now, Pete, on Rangers and talk about their incomings, what positions is Philippe Clement targeting going into their window?
Yeah, obviously Rangers are looking at the January market to try and build on the success they've had under Philippe Clement in his early months in charge at Ibrox. A bit like Celtic, striker is the main priority. If they can bring somebody in to help score them goals in the second half of the season, that is their priority target. Also, a left back is another area of the team that Philippe Clement would like to reinforce that as well. Also, they've obviously Borna Barisic is coming to the end of his contract. He is in the final 6 months of his deal now at Ibrox, and it's uncertain whether he will be extending that or maybe moving on in a free transfer, while the Turkish boy Yilmaz just hasn't really nailed down a regular place in that Rangers side as well. He was meant to come in and provide competition to Barisic, but it just hasn't worked out for him as well. So I think that's another area of the team that Clement would like to bring in, will be left back and also a striker. But as mentioned, I think Rangers slightly different, shopping in a different market from Celtic. Probably in this January window, they'll be looking at small fees and loan deals, preferably if they are to bring in new players. But don't think a massive window ahead for Rangers. But if they can get those two positions, I think that will only strengthen their squad and give them a good boost heading into the second half of the season.
Absolutely. I'm sure both clubs are going to be desperate to keep pushing for that title race. And so that means, of course, that they will bolster. Pete, what do you make of the links with Lawrence Shanklin from Hearts to Rangers? Is that one that's likely to happen in the summer, or is there any validity in it happening potentially in January?
Yeah, I think obviously there is interest there from Rangers. No surprise either. Obviously, Lawrence Shanklin has probably been the best striker in the Scottish Premiership this season. That's been shown in his form and his performances for Hearts. He's at the peak of his career for me right now as well. He would be a brilliant addition for Rangers, but it's not a straightforward deal to do by any stretch, really. He's coming into the final 18 months of his contract at Hearts. The player himself is refusing to rule out a move away, but I think Hearts would drive a really hard bargain if they were to sell Lawrence Shanklin in the January transfer window. You're probably looking at least £3 million plus for the Scotland international, and I don't think Rangers would go to that right now unless players were to leave, and that might boost the transfer kitty for Philippe Clement. But yeah, I think right now, if there's a move to happen for Lawrence Shanklin, I think it'll be more the summer than January. But I'm sure Rangers might just chance their arm and maybe make a few offers for Shanklin just to see if Hearts would consider letting him go. So, but yeah, I think for Rangers right now, they are keeping a very close eye on his situation at Tynecastle, and Hearts are bracing themselves for offers for their captain.
What about current Groningen star Kevin Van Veen, of course, formerly at Motherwell, 29 goals, all competitions last season. If the right offer's made, do you think he could potentially move to Ibrox?
Yeah, I think there's a good possibility. I think there's a better possibility of Rangers landing Van Veen than Lawrence Shanklin. He would fit sort of the budget that Rangers are working under for January as well. A loan deal would suit all parties. Obviously, Van Veen had a great season for Motherwell last year, scoring 29 goals. So he's proven in the Scottish Premiership, and that's what Rangers would like as well, rather than maybe looking abroad for a sign-in from somewhere else. They know Van Veen knows the Scottish League inside out and could hit the ground running if they were to pursue a move for the former Motherwell man. And it does seem Van Veen is interested in a move back to Scotland for family reasons as well. So he ticks all the boxes for Rangers right now. A loan deal could happen. I think Groningen would be open to that. And I think Van Veen is very much interested in a move back to Scotland. And Rangers did show a bit of interest in the Dutchman in the summer transfer window before moving on to other targets. So there has been a long-term interest there. And I think he's probably right now a more viable target just due to his availability on loan and the budget as well that Rangers are working under.
And the midfield, Pete, has been stung with injuries this season. I mean, there's countless injuries they've had. Could potentially Ianis Hadji at Alaves or Alex Lowry at the heart of Midtjylland, could they be recalled to bolster their options in midfield, potentially?
Yeah, obviously they have been hit badly by injuries this season. Rangers in midfield, I think it's an area of the team that Philippe Clement would like to improve on. Obviously, he'll be hoping to get those injured players back sooner rather than later. I'm sure they'll be exploring all options. I don't think right now they are pushing to bring those players back from their loan deals. They are happy for them to stay out there and continue getting regular first-team football, because if they do return and the injured players come back to fitness, it's just going to push them further down the pecking order right now. And as I said, I think the priorities right now for Philippe Clement is to bring in that striker and that left back. He thinks that will help solidify his squad ready for that title charge in the second half of the season. But yeah, I'm sure the Rangers' new director of football, Niels Koopman, will be looking at all options. And if the right midfielder does come along and it's a deal that suits Rangers for a small fee or either a loan deal, I think it's something they would definitely pursue. But I think Philippe Clement will be hoping that his injured stars can return sooner rather than later.
And are there any left backs, Pete, that have been named, that have been spoken about potentially, that are going to be signed?
No names as yet. Obviously, they are looking at that area of the team that they can see if they can strengthen in. Obviously, Dujon Sterling, such a versatile player, he could potentially fill in at left back if needed. He can play a right back. He's even been playing in midfield this season, which is probably not a position that he's used to playing, but it's a needs must right now for Rangers with those injury problems that players have had to fill in at different positions. As I said, I'm sure Rangers will be looking at the English Premier League to see if there's any loan deals they can potentially look at for that left back option as well. And obviously the influence of Clement and Niels Koopman and their contacts in Dutch and Belgian football, I'm sure they'll be looking at those countries to see what potential targets do come up in January. And that, again, they'll be looking at left backs from all over Europe to see if there's somebody who can come in and help improve the team right away. And as I said, Barisic is the number one left back at Rangers right now as well, so it's not a massive need to bring somebody in right now. Don't think he will be leaving in January unless they get a good offer for him. So they'll be looking to see if they can keep hold of Barisic long term. But I think coming into next summer, I think left back will be an area of the team that they need to make a permanent signing.
And there's some talk, Pete, according to Football Insider, that Mason Holgate could have his loan at Southampton terminated by Everton and could join Rangers for the second half of the season. Is that possible? Is there any likelihood of that actually happening?
Yeah, I'm sure he is a player that's on the list of a number of clubs. Obviously, Mason Holgate went to Southampton, and unfortunately for him, he's not had much of a look in due to Southampton's flying form. More than anything else, they've been on a great unbeaten run under Russell Martin, and I'm sure Mason Holgate himself would prefer to be playing on a regular basis. So he will look at his options come January. Everton, I'm sure as well, would also like to see Mason Holgate get a regular run somewhere else out on loan as well. So they'll be exploring the options in January. Obviously, a great deal of experience, Mason Holgate, playing in the Premier League for Everton. So I think if Rangers were to pursue their interest in him, he could be an astute signing. He can play a centre-back, he can play a right-back, could even fill in at left-back as well. But I think if Rangers were to move for him, he could be a good signing. And I'm sure it's a move that Mason Holgate would definitely consider as well, as long as he's guaranteed regular first-team football.
So it sounds like quite a potential incoming quiet transfer window, Pete, for Rangers. Can we see any potential outgoings happening in the window?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be players who maybe not happy with their game time at Ibrox right now under Philippe Clement. Obviously, they will be looking to see if they can maybe shift players out, so then it frees up space in the squad to bring in some new signings and also maybe increase the transfer kitty as well. But as we've mentioned as well here, Lewis, they've got a lot of injury problems right now, Rangers, so they won't really want to lose too many other players from that squad. They'll want to keep everybody together because they know how big a second half of the season they've got coming up. They're still in Europe as well, with the Europa League to come around as well, so they won't want to weaken themselves with the rigors of playing in European football and then getting back to domestic action as well. So I think Philippe Clement now, he's evaluated the squad now, he's been in there, but yeah, I think he'll be looking to keep hold of players rather than letting anybody move on.
You mentioned one name earlier, Pete, Borja Barisic. We talked about another player that's out of contract end of the season, John Lundstrom. Can Rangers fans expect him to stay on at Ibrox, or is it likely that he might move on?
Yeah, it's more and more difficult when there's less time on those contracts that these players would end up staying. Obviously, Lundstrom's been a good signing for Rangers. He's been very influential. He's a huge fans' favourite at Ibrox as well. But due to his contract situation, I'm sure there will be a number of clubs in England and elsewhere around Europe just looking at Lundstrom, ready to make a move for him. So when you've got players coming into the final 6 months of their contracts like Lundstrom and Barisic, Rangers might have to make a decision on both players in January. I'm sure Philippe Clement would hope that the club would keep hold of them as they want to maintain this title challenge with Celtic. So he won't want to lose two of his best players in January, but this is going to be realistically Rangers' last chance to get a decent transfer fee for both players, especially if there's no progress in contract talks and both players are happy to run down the contracts. So big decisions to be made by that Rangers recruitment team in the January transfer window, with these players seeing their contracts expire come next summer.
And how about Abdallah Sima, the on loan player from Brighton? What are the odds of him staying at the club? Are there any talks about that potentially being extended?
Yeah, obviously he's been a big success story for Rangers since his loan move from Brighton. Really being a standout player under Clement down that left side, scoring goals, providing goals as well, playing a key role in them closing the gap on Celtic in the league, and also making that last 16 of the Europa League as well. The only issue for Rangers is with his performances and his form right now for Rangers. It just sees his price tag go up. He doesn't really figure in the plans of Brighton going forward, and Brighton are pretty well stocked with attacking players. So I think Brighton would be open to selling Sima on a permanent basis. I don't see a deal happening in January for Sima. I think he'll just remain at Rangers on loan until the end of the season, and Rangers then will try and make that deal permanent if they can. But for Rangers, probably right now, they need to try and do a deal pretty quickly for him, because I think his performances will only increase interest from other clubs in him as well, and that could maybe see Sima being priced out of a move for to Rangers on a permanent basis, because I'm sure Brighton will be hoping for top dollar for the versatile attacker come the summer as well. And I think for Rangers right now, talks will be being held with Brighton to see if a deal can be done, but I think it's more than likely that any permanent move for Sima would happen in the summer.
And what sort of valuation are we talking, Peter? I know it might be early days, and of course he could continue performing this season, but roughly, what would you put his price tag as?
Yeah, obviously, I think in the going rates right now, you probably look between 10 to 50 million for something like Sima, and Rangers wouldn't be able to do that in January. They might be able to look at it again in the summer, but if he continues to perform, especially in European football, that's just going to open the shop window even more for Sima, maybe for a big money move. And Brighton did pay a decent transfer fee when they did sign him from the Czech Republic a few seasons back as well, so they will be looking most of their money back on Sima, and they'll only be the ones to benefit if he continues to shine at Rangers. It's only going to put his price tag up, and as I said, I think you'd be looking at between 10 to 50 million for Sima's signature come the summer.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.